This semester, I took my first figure drawing class. Forget starting off slow with a bowl of fruit. As soon as the door clicked shut, an old woman in the middle of the room dropped her robe, revealing her wrinkly tits for the world to see. I was aghast. I didn't know what to do. Was I supposed to look? Not look? If I looked, then where? Her sagging memories, her face, her eyes? What if she looked back? Then I'd be staring at a naked old woman, and a naked old woman would be staring back at me. I couldn't think of anything more awkward than that, except maybe if she was my grandma.
Pick a spot and get your sketchbooks ready. We're doing 5-minute poses,
Instructed the professor, as he motioned towards the easels set up in a circle around the model. He opened up a newspaper and started reading. I sat there nervously, holding a charcoal pencil in my hand as the geriatric nude struck a pose. To my surprise, I found her to be quite charismatic. For such an old woman, she displayed the kind of dignified poise you'd expect from a ballerina. Smiling, she watched me as I began to sketch her elegant features. Her second pose was just as graceful as the first. Arched back, bent knees, and head turned in my direction. I immortalized the moment in my sketchbook, the way the light gleamed off her chest, her soul-piercing brown eyes, and the shadows clutching her in a lover's embrace. Maybe I'd impress her by showing her my work after class. With more flexibility than a yoga instructor, she stretched out further and contorted herself for the third pose. She chose to face me again, as though she was as captivated with me as I was with her. In 5 short minutes, I was able to capture her very essence on the page. Her torso began to crackle as she twisted it sideways. Her earthy eyes remained locked on mine, but her smile had faded. Had I offended her somehow? Was my artwork not good enough? My stomach dropped and she moved into her 5th pose. Her upper body began to twist towards the other side of the room, but her legs and her head remained in place, making her appear as though she'd just been in a wreck. Her fingers bent outward. I could hear snapping noises as her bones popped out of the joints, causing her fingers to elongate to unnatural lengths. My hands trembled, barely able to keep hold of the pencil as I watched the horrid mess of misplaced limbs. I didn't want to look at her, nor at my sketchbook, but somehow my hand flew seamlessly over the page, as though forced to trace the inhuman shape I was witnessing. I tried to stop it. I really did. I slapped my free hand over the one holding the pencil. I pushed. I pulled. No matter how hard I tried to stop, I kept drawing. The model's hawk-like eyes stared me down with contempt. The cold gaze felt as though it was burrowing into me, examining every inch of me. Not just on the outside, but on the inside too, like an X-ray. It burned. It burned under my skin. My joints began to ache. I could feel the pressure of an unseen force trying to pull my bones apart. And through it all, my hand still scribbled in my sketchbook.
Alright, let's take a quick break, and then we'll do a half-hour pose,
said the professor, still looking at his newspaper. The model's body rebounded back into place like an elastic band. I felt an instant wave of relief. The pressure was gone, but I was still sore. She gave me a knowing, devious smile, slipped into her robe, winked, and stepped out of the room. It was only then that I noticed my fellow students exchanging anxious stares and rubbing their now rigid, almost atrophied hands. As I nervously paced around the room and rubbed my own hands, I peeked at the other students' sketchbooks. Blood drained from my face as I realized that in every single sketch, the model's head was turned towards the viewer, as though she'd been facing every single student in class at the same time. The door swung open and a younger woman stepped in, apologizing for her tardiness. Whoever, or whatever, the old woman was, she wasn't a model. I really don't want to go back to class.